Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Fuse News, coming to you live today on Facebook and YouTube. Here's today's top stories. The Samuel Alexander Building has now been occupied by students at the University of Manchester who are protesting the treatment of students and staff this academic year. Tom Grant was at the scene yesterday when the occupation began. Here's his report on all the demands that need to be met and what's going on with the occupation.
It is nearly 6:20 here on Thursday evening, and we're outside the Samuel Alexander Building on the main campus of the University of Manchester, where this evening protesters from the Nancy Out campaign have occupied the building behind me. They entered the building just after 5 o'clock and have since dropped banners from the balconies and some of the windows in the old section of the building. They've entered the building on the premise that they'll reach the demands from the university that they want a rent rebate of up to 30%. They also want to democratise the University of Manchester. They're also looking for a cash rebate of £1,500 for all students, as well as an end to police patrols that have been recently seen on university campuses. They're also asking for no compulsory redundancies to be put between staff, as well as no punishment for the current occupiers in the building behind me. The Manchester Media Group spoke to an occupier earlier and they had this to say. Once again, we are occupying the University of Manchester as a reaction to the university's abysmal treatment of students and staff. The university has let down students and staff consistently throughout this crisis. In semester 1, we saw students get fenced in, a racist assault on campus and horrific living conditions for students in halls. Now in semester 2, we are still dealing with poor living conditions on top of overzealous police patrols on campus, threats of staff redundancies and an all-student vote of no confidence that has been ignored by management. We have no option but to occupy, and we will not be leaving until demands are met. We are currently unaware of how long these students will be occupying this building, but do keep up to date with Fuse News, Fuse FM and the Mancunian for all the latest updates. Tom Grant, Fuse News.
That was Tom Grant there reporting on the occupation. In other news, after AJ Tracey made an impromptu appearance at Plattfield Park on Monday afternoon, his management team have been fined a whopping £10,000 fine for breaking COVID regulations. On Monday morning, AJ Tracey announced to fans via social media that he would be making appearances in Birmingham, Manchester and Bristol, following the release of his latest album, Flu Game. His performance at Plattfield Park sparked large crowds of students to gather, as well as a huge police presence to respond to the volume of people. This has resulted in concerns over COVID safety and social distancing. His Bristol appearance was later cancelled. Following this, 2 security guards have been charged following the incident of racial profiling involving Zakadan, which took place on the University of Manchester Fallowfield campus on the 14th of November 2020. Greater Manchester Police released a report that the 2 officers, Mohammed Akram and Christopher Warden, have been charged racially, religiously aggravated common assault by beating. On the 18th of May, they will appear at the Manchester and Salford Magistrates Court. Now here's Anurag with the latest international news.
Hi, welcome to the International News Bulletin of Fuse News at the University of Manchester. The big news is coming from India, where the country has recorded the highest one-day tally of new COVID-19 cases anywhere in the world. That's around 315,000, and the country's highest number of deaths over 24 hours. To brief us more about the situation on ground, CNN correspondent from India, Prashasti Shandelia, is joining us. So during this time of emergency and global pandemic, Prashasti is continuously reporting from ground zero for CNN News 18. So Prashasti, welcome to the University of Manchester, and thanks for giving us your time from your hectic schedule.
Thank you so much, Anurag. Thank you. I hope the inputs that I share are, valuable enough to shed some light here.
Yeah, so I'll start hitting you with the questions. So we'll start with what's the current situation on ground during the second wave of COVID spread in India?
Well, clearly, Anurag, the situation continues to remain grim. Every day we are seeing new peaks across the country, not just the capital. The financial capital and the national capital too are reeling under an emergency. although it's an unprecedented emergency, despite all the precautions being taken up, now we are seeing that, after the first wave, somehow there was a change in the attitude of the people. There was laxity, of course. There were violations of the COVID appropriate behavior. And all these factors cumulative, this has resulted in another wave across the country. Both the financial capital and the national capital, as I told you, are breaking new records every other day. And also with that, Anurag, when I report on ground, I still see people violating the laws laid down by the Union Health Ministry. And this continues on a day-to-day basis. Despite a very strict lockdown imposed in the national capital, there are some sectors which are opened up now, including the essential services, the nutriment services, and the medical services. But clearly, we are seeing that the frontline healthcare workers putting in everything they have at the moment to, avert this major crisis.
Okay, so and how about the lockdown? Like I've heard that the Delhi, the national capital, is under lockdown, and Maharashtra is also under lockdown. There are many states; those are severely affected, but they are not under lockdown.
Well, definitely. Well, lockdowns clearly are not just the solution, Anurag. It's a bigger picture that we need to see. Although lockdown has been imposed here, and initially the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal of the national capital was not too keen on imposing the lockdown. But since we saw the cases spiking, the numbers spiking to exponential levels, hence lockdown was imposed. Initially, there was just a 2-day weekend lockdown, which was further extended to a 1-week lockdown. Then we saw Maharashtra. Then there are different states which are, locking down themselves. This is being basically done to contain the virus. But still, it remains to be seen how feasible it's going to be. Because despite the lockdown in the national capital, we are seeing new records every day. Yesterday itself, Anurag, more than 28,000 cases were reported in Delhi, with an average of more than 1,000 infections per hour. The situation definitely continues to remain grim. A couple of days back, there were 277 deaths which were reported in the capital, with an average of almost 5 deaths in, almost 10 deaths in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So the average clearly is serious. The situation continues to remain grim. Most of the mega cities of the country are imposed under lockdown, and but still people need to understand their responsibility at this point of time. We are seeing different sectors working day in and day out. We see, the police personnel stepping out every day, the security personnel, the healthcare workers, journalists, trying to put what they have at the moment. But it remains to be seen how people adhere to the COVID appropriate behavior. That too remains to be seen.
Okay. And how about the healthcare infrastructure challenges? Like from social media to mainstream, like we are observing the oxygen, like lack of oxygen in hospitals. So, what about those?
Well, clearly, Anurag, the health infrastructure is enormously outstretched present because of the number of cases spiking to exponential levels. Earlier in the month of March itself, the capital was recording almost 300 to 400 cases on a daily basis. Now the number has increased massively. So this wave was not predicted actually. The worst part about this wave was it wasn't predicted by anybody. Like COVID itself wasn't predicted, so was this wave. After September and November, when the first wave ended, things were crawling back to normalcy. The economy was crawling back to normalcy. Different, sectors of the industry were opening up. And this is what happened to the health infrastructure as well. With almost 300 cases coming on a daily basis in Delhi, the health infrastructure was, prepared for the kind of, situation that was present there. But with this sudden spike, Anurag, we are seeing that the health infrastructure is also trying to come to terms with this unprecedented emergency, which is why we are seeing that there are various healthcare workers who are putting in whatever they can. They're working beyond their shifts. We are seeing deficit of oxygen supply, life-saving medicines, and there is a fear and panic among people. People are also, thinking that if they admit their loved ones or themselves to the hospitals, they might get saved. So these apprehensions and coupled with the unprecedented spike in the numbers, are massively impacting the health infrastructure, which is why the chief minister also urged the people to get themselves hospitalized only when it's extremely important, only when it's extremely serious. And which is why we are seeing the health infrastructure being massively outstretched. But the government is taking cognizance of the entire situation. We are seeing the government making arrangements at the 11th hour to see if the situation doesn't get out of hand anymore.
Okay, and what about the vaccination? Like some reports are suggesting that government of India have exported vaccines like outside the country, like to other countries, and now they are lacking with the quantities like in India itself.
Well, which is exactly why Anurag, the Prime Minister, held a very crucial meeting with the vaccine manufacturers of the country. And this came after the announcement that there's going to be a universal vaccination of all the residents of the country above 18 years of age from 1st of May. So this is being done, A, to counter the spread of the virus, and B, to universally vaccinate the residents of the country. Now we are hearing that the country is equipped with the vaccinations, which is why we are starting with the universal vaccination policy. So from 1st of May in the country, everybody who's above the age of 18 will be eligible to get themselves vaccinated.
Thanks, Prashasti. Prashasti, you have made some really informative statements, and these are really informative for all of us here, because we have huge Indian diaspora here at the Manchester and in United Kingdom. So thanks once again. Thanks for joining us.
That's all from us this week at Fuse News at the University of Manchester. Don't forget to make the most of the good weather with the reopening of the SU Bar. Tune in next week for our weekly news update.